Tina Fey from Saturday Night Live has a quote that I love about working as a stand-up comedian. There is something to be said for bombing miserably on stage and realizing afterwards that you're okay and you didn't die. But not dying is hardly motivation for most of us to tackle our fears and do the thing that scares us most. We've all heard the quotes about failure is not the opposite of success and that failure is a rung on the ladder to success. But if you're a perfectionist like me, knowing that failure is inevitable is not enough to override those perfectionist instincts. So if you're ready to break up with perfectionism and be brave enough to bomb, keep watching as I unpack 3 techniques to help you overcome your perfectionism. Hi everyone, I'm Fia Fasbinder and welcome to Moxie Talk, where I help you find your voice, share your message, and lead with confidence. Today we are talking about how to break up with your perfectionist instincts. But before we do, make sure to hit that alert button if you're watching me on YouTube. And if you like this video, make sure to share it with friends and colleagues and subscribe to our channel. Thomas Curran is a psychologist at the London School of Economics and an expert on perfectionism. He and his team have synthesized decades of data on perfectionism to reveal some surprising insights. He says that the way that perfectionists are built makes us very sensitive and vulnerable to setbacks and failures because they're a threat to the idealized version of who we want to be and who we think we should be. Of course, that creates a lot of anxiety, a lot of worry, and ultimately stops us from taking risks and stops us from pushing ourselves forward. It's a cycle of self-defeat that perfectionists engage in, and they're constantly hyper-vigilant and wary about how other people are perceiving them and how they're performing. And that's a lot of mental energy expended, just trying to uphold an image that you want other people to think of you and want other people to see. And if that's not scary enough, the scariest part of perfectionism is that perfectionists are likely to undermine themselves through self-handicapped thinking. Thinking like, I don't want to know that I wasn't capable of doing this, so I might as well just not try that hard. And Curran sees this a lot in his research. Perfectionists hold off their effort after they failed the first time. They're saving face and basically saying, I can't fail at something I didn't try. So energy is only placed in areas where there's a very high chance of success. Does this sound familiar? It certainly does for me. And although I consider myself a recovering perfectionist, I still find myself pulled towards this kind of perfectionist thinking all the time. Ultimately, overcoming perfectionism boils down to our relationship with failure. Failure is the great taboo to perfectionists. We feel that we have to conceal our failure whenever we put ourselves out there. And we must accept, as perfectionists, that we're going to fail. And we're going to fail many, many times. I call this failing better. Becoming comfortable with failure is not an easy thing to do. I understand. And it's a really brave thing to do to normalize your failure. It's so crucial, though, that we're able to break down some of those tendencies and we're able to accept and embrace our flaws and our mistakes. And if we can get that right, then we'll begin to see that we can still have high standards and we can still shoot for really, really high goals. But we can do this without perfectionist thinking. Now, this kind of radical acceptance of failure means that you can't allow failure to sit and fester. You have to squash it with this iron fist of acceptance and reframe it as growth. So here are my 3 techniques to help overcome perfectionist thinking. Technique number 1 is what I call the Church of Fail. Now, this could also be the synagogue of fail, or the mosque of fail, or the non-denominational congregation of fail. Welcome everybody to the congregation of fail. In order to create this kind of congregation, you're going to need to have a group of people. Now, this could be your friends, your family, your colleagues, even members of a gym. The group constituents don't really matter as long as you're able to meet with them at least once a month, preferably even more often, and that you are okay being vulnerable around these people. Now, in this special meeting, people will volunteer to share their biggest personal or professional fails of the week or month. And there's 3 questions that they should answer. Question number 1, what did you feel after you failed? Question number 2, how did you cope with it? And question number 3, what did you learn from it? And then once everybody is finished, there should be a big round of applause and everyone else should celebrate what they're hearing. Now, it's in this process of sharing something that you have a visceral experience that happens in your body a lot more than if you just shared it in a one-on-one setting with somebody. We are literally celebrating in a group your failure. And you'll remember it a lot more than if it was just in a one-on-one setting with somebody or you just wrote it down in a journal. You will take so much more away from this, especially the learning moment. And there's something about doing this that is like giving people a tonic or a medicine. Once they release something and they share it with other people, a lightness comes to it. You realize that maybe it's not quite as catastrophizing as you thought it was, or as shameful of a situation as you saw. And doing this over time and time again, you may even find that these mistakes weren't as big of a deal and that you were able to recover from them quicker and learn from them quicker. So you might even consider starting a church of failure at work. Research reveals that punishing employees for mistakes is counterproductive, and it doesn't stop mistakes from happening. It just makes employees hide them. So the Church of Fail is about normalizing failure so that we can learn from it, grow from it, not let it stop us from taking risks, and move on. Technique number 2 is to create strategies for dealing with your perfectionism. Personally, I find it helpful to adopt anti-perfectionism by aiming to fail a few times a year. Now, in order to get good at failing, I expect to have at least 3 major failures by the end of the year. And if I don't have these major failures, I know I'm just repeating what I'm already good at and staying in my comfort zone. So having a keynote application rejected, or a workshop bomb, or a high-stakes coaching situation fall flat is a sign that I'm pushing myself to try new things. It also cushions that blow for me. When I crash and burn, which I know I will, I can check it off as one of my expected failures for the year. Technique number 3 is to measure your excellence in terms of your progress towards the goal. Now, psychologists find that one of the liabilities of perfectionism is being obsessed with maintaining your image. If you focus instead on working toward mastery, you can stay motivated to keep bettering your own best. Perfectionists have strong tendencies towards negativity bias, and they will always point out what went wrong first and what needs to be fixed. So in order to counteract that kind of negative thinking, it's crucial to point out all the things you did well also. And the clearer you are about what your personal best looks like, the easier it is to improve. So how do you do that if you have a hard time knowing what your personal best is? It's so difficult to judge our own performance, especially for perfectionists. But if you can find a group of people you trust to take an objective look at your work, you'll make strides towards moving towards your own personal best. At work, you can set up a quality control committee if you're not sure if a project is good enough, or send it independently to a few trusted colleagues who share your standards. Then treat them like judges. Their job is to rate your work on a scale of 1 to 10. If you get at least 8s across the board, you know you can stop hating on this project and trust your judges. Then ask each judge to tell you one thing you can do better. Don't focus on everything that needs to be done better and everything you did wrong. Research suggests that too much feedback can distract and demotivate us. So instead, identify just a few things that you want to improve on every time you ask for feedback from these judges. At the end of the day, success is less about how close you come to perfection and more about the struggles you've managed to overcome. As an actor, I was never satisfied with my performance, but I know that there's a version of me that could have been satisfied with it. I realized that the 14-year-old girl who could barely memorize a script would have been blown away by the progress I made and the person I've become today. And if my past self would have been amazed at how good I've gotten, then maybe that can be good enough for me to stop living in fear of failure. And maybe it can be good enough for you too. So I hope that this video was valuable for you. I hope you've come away with some techniques to break up with your perfectionist tendencies. If you enjoyed this video, if you thought it was valuable, please make sure to pass it on to a friend who might also benefit from some techniques to break up with their perfectionism. And if you want to know more about what we do here at Moxie, please check out moxieinstitute.com. Lots of great classes that you can take and conquer that perfectionist tendency head on. Until next time, don't forget to lead boldly, live brilliantly, and speak with Moxie.